July 8th Board of Fair Commissioners meeting is called to order. And we start each meeting with a legal notice as information for our audience. If you're not satisfied with the decision made by the Metropolitan Board of Fair Commissioners today, you may appeal the decision by petitioning for a writ of cert with the Davidson County Chancery or Circuit Court. Your appeal must be filed within 60 days of the date of entry of the board's decision. To ensure that your appeal is filed in a timely manner and that all procedural requirements have been met, please be advised that you should contact your own independent legal counsel. All right, we're going to start with a review of the minutes from the previous meeting, which was May the 14th, 8 a.m. Minutes have been circulated to the board. Has any questions or comments? We have a move to approve the minutes.
Second.
And a second. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Okay, the minutes are approved as submitted. And also, we typically set aside a few minutes at the beginning of the meeting for any public comments that are not on the agenda. If anybody from the audience wants to be recognized, we'll allow 3 minutes at the podium. If there's no public comments, we can move on straight to the agenda, which would include our monthly reports. And we start off with Felicia Bowman, financial report, please.
Good morning. I will be giving the financials as of May 31st. The month of June is still being closed out. It will be open until the end of July, 1st of August. So the numbers that you will hear are for May 31st, 2019. The revenue through May 31st, 2019, $2,714,955. Expenses, $2,978,656 for a net loss of $263,701. Depreciation for the month of May, $339,638. Our fund balance for the month of May, or the month ending May 31st, we were at a negative $223,860. The breakdown of our expenses: payroll, $1,289,593. Utilities, $667,627. Purchase services, $199,607. Supplies, $107,358. Communications, $27,436. Temporary services, $162,882. Security services, $93,440. IT services, $124,711. And our insurance permits and low cap, $306,002 for a total of the $2,978,656. Further breakdown of those expenses with comparison, a breakdown of those expenses for the month. 44% spent on payroll, 21% on utilities, 6% on purchase services, 4% on supplies, 1% on communications, 4% on temporary services, 3% security services, 4% IT services, and 13% insurance permits. For revenue, by category: 42% flea market booth rental, 14% parking, 9% track, 18% building rent, 1% outside space, 5% concessions, 5% state fair, FF&E rental, 5%, and 1% other. Any questions on those before I go forward? The other thing we want to let you know is that the fairgrounds did get approved for a subsidy, and it was $300,000 is the subsidy that we received for the year ending 6/30/2019. Any questions?
Any questions from the board? If not, we can move on to the executive director's report.
All right, I have three things. I want to give an introduction. Richie Swiger. Richie, wave, stand up so everybody can see you. Richie is our new budget analyst with Metro. And while he's been in Metro, he is newly assigned to the fairgrounds, and we welcome him, and he's going to be assisting us in all things budget moving forward. So welcome. Appreciate all the time you've spent with us already. The other, we had a unique opportunity recently to assist the Shriners International. It's kind of near and dear to our own fair director's heart, as he is a Shriners member himself. And of course, the Nashville Convention and Visitors Corporation also played a big role in bringing a very highly attended convention to Nashville. It was the International Shriners, and we got the opportunity this past week to host about 100 horses that participated in a competition and a parade in Nashville. And if you were downtown at all on Tuesday and got to witness the parade, it was quite the spectacle. It was a lot of fun. And so we were just really grateful for the opportunity to host and help with that event. On a more difficult note, since we met last, we have lost an employee. A long-time tenure employee, Teresa Barrett, passed away, and it was very difficult for all of us. Her work ethic was such that the amount of work that she did and the contribution that she made, many of our events, some of the people in this room have worked with Teresa and hired her to work their events. Honestly, she was the hardest working person I know, and we will miss her terribly. And I know D&D has felt a big loss as well, because she also worked for them in her off time. So we just want to recognize and honor our colleague, Teresa Barrett, and certainly pass our positive thoughts and our prayers to her family.
Thank you. You have other items?
Nope.
I have a question, just based on the financials. Looks like our budgets for most expenses are pretty much in line. Utilities, hard to predict, they're high. But just quickly, like any kind of overview of some of the challenges, like predicting the revenue this year, positives, negatives, surprises this year that, it's very transitional, a lot going on, a lot of logistics to think about this year. But is there just any highlights that you want to briefly go over?
All in all, we're on budget. So our approved budget for the last 2 years, as a reminder, was approved as a deficit budget. So we did anticipate some impacts to revenue. It's hard to grow as you're transitioning, and our facilities are such currently that we had lost some business, and so we had made sure that we took that into account. That said, we did hit our revenue budget as approved, and we also kept expenses. We anticipate becoming under budget in expenses. We've been very cautious, of course, and prudent in our spending. That said, maintaining these aged facilities is expensive. Our utility costs are very, very high. We don't have efficient lighting and HVAC systems. Summers pose a significant challenge for us sometimes. I think it was probably 2 weeks in a row, we had upwards of 16, 17 HVAC units go down that required service. And of course, we have to bring in professional services to help us get those online for the comfort and safety of our guests. So, those are the things that we also anticipate not having when we move and relocate into our new facilities. As you all know, we've got high efficiency systems in all our utility systems down there, and so it is anticipated for some time we will see a nice reduction in some of those line items. But as far as our budget and how that was developed over the last 2 years, we are on budget.
It certainly seems like the staff has done a great job.
They have. Everybody has pulled
Flea
together.
market and other events have held it together through a lot of chaos and controversy and unknowns that we were facing. So kudos and thank you. Great job for keeping it all together as we make a move here for a new and improved facility. Yeah.
Follow up, echo Ned's comments, and thank you for the staff for managing a difficult year. Just one comment for maybe Felicia and our new budget analyst, since we are going to be having some kind of transition with new facilities and old facilities. I know we leverage depreciation a lot to close our budget holes, and curious. You know this, I don't, but just look through how we potentially could use existing facilities until they're decommissioned to
That's something I'll work very closely with our budget analysts and finance to make sure that that there's not very much of an overlap, that as soon as we can move from these facilities to the other, that we can cut those expenses and be able to maintain and not be running dual facilities at the same time.
I'm just going off the assumption that our depreciation is going to increase
Yes.
exponentially, as well. So, okay, great, thank you.
All right, any other questions from the board on the monthly reports? If not, we can move on to agenda item old business A, Fairgrounds Improvement Project update, please. Good morning.
Good morning, board. Good morning, staff. So you're going to hear from me quite a little bit this morning. I'll be reporting on the financials as usual, but I'll also be giving a DBE, a Diversity Business Enterprise update this morning in Roxanne Bethune's absence. That being said, you guys should have... Okay. Is this better?
A little better?
Okay.
Okay. Does everybody make sure to...
Absolutely. So if the board is looking at their package, you should have 2 pages of blue sheets. One is the budget that you're familiar with seeing, and I'll start there this morning. Given an update, some movement in some of the line items, primarily related to the construction line item. So you'll see that the construction line item now is just shy of $32 million. What's happened since the last time the budget's been presented to you is the FF&E line item as well as the project contingency line item has been shifted there. We have now reached a point where we're completely procured all of our scopes for the project. So what you have there is the construction manager Skanska's overall budget specifically for the expo site and the buildings that we're going to talk about this morning. What's happened in the FF&E, we've had the kitchen equipment and operations equipment become part of what's going to be procured by our construction manager Skanska, as well as the site fencing. So that cost that was in the FF&E line item has moved into the construction line item. In terms of progress on site, we've spent now just over $19 million in construction costs through the end of June. And what that means is we're about 60% complete in terms of dollars spent. Of course, when I present numbers to you here in this meeting, of course, they're 30 to 45 days behind what's actually out there on site. So I always like to make sure that I bring that to everyone's attention. But as you can see, that 60% on construction is what's driving our budget, as our overall budget is at about 60% complete. In terms of design, we are over 80% complete, 84%, which is tracking with where they are in terms of their progress. Primarily now we're in the phase of construction administration, which is them observing and reporting and dealing with any issues that we may find during construction of the facility. We're tracking well with our project management, just under 50% in terms of our allocated budget for where we are currently. I skipped over FF&E, I apologize. We have started to see some spend in FF&E. That's primarily for very few items that are being managed between our team as well as the fairgrounds. So that number is really small, but what we've done is actually procured. So we've issued purchase orders for security, IT equipment, compactors on site. So a lot more has been procured than what's actually been spent. But as FF&E items and that installation will be the last thing that will be happening on site, that uptick will be very heavy in the last few months. Finally, you'll see that we've reduced the project contingency down to a very small amount. I just want to highlight that now that we've completed procurement with our construction managers, the contingency that we have for construction is captured in the construction area above. So we work with Skanska to outline how much contingency we feel comfortable with carrying out through the rest of the project, as well as allowances for certain things that we may encounter before completion. I'll also highlight infrastructure in the park, the $1 million that we're carrying there. Currently, that's kind of been stable in that $200,000 range. That will pick up in the next couple months as well. One, because of some construction related to access to the soccer field, so that'll be moving forward. And then also because we've had contractors largely complete their work, you'll start to see retainage releases also start to hit that line item. And so that number will start to move a little bit as well. Before I leave the budget, are there any questions before I jump into the diversity business update? Okay. If not, there's another page that has blue and white, my favorite colors apparently for this board meeting, but I think it's still suitable. But what you'll see is an update for diversity business, and I want to highlight that these figures are through April of this year. And the reason that they're through April is because when we're reporting diversity business, we're doing that off of dollars paid. So we're actually calculating payments to all parties that have been proved by canceled check or some form of financial transaction register. So the dollars that we're presenting to you, they run even further in arrears because we're not counting just payment from the fairgrounds to said entity. It's all the way down through the diversity business level, and then we actually get proof of payment from them. So I'll start with construction and work our way down. Again, led by Skanska, we have a total of 30 diversity businesses, 15 women, 11 minority, and 4 small. And because of the way that we procured the Expo Center, we've actually been tracking those two costs separately. And so you have everything that's what I've called non-Expo on the sheet in front of you. That includes the grandstands, that includes Fair Park, and then all the work that happened on site prior to starting Expo. And currently we're tracking at 26% diversity participation there, with a 20% goal that was placed under Skanska's contract. When we started the Expo Center, we had a target of 30%, and Skanska absorbed that target. Currently, we're tracking at 33% for the Expo Center, which is great. All in all, all of Skanska's work on site to date, we've spent with those 30 DBEs $6.39 million. And again, this is through April, so that number will jump pretty significantly if we were to go through June. But in terms of what we've been able to verify, $6.39 million, which gives us through April 33% for the Expo Center. In design and engineering, which is led by the small business Atkinson and Associates, their team consists of 6 small business entities, 4 women-owned businesses, and 1 minority business entity, and they're currently tracking at 95% participation through through April, and that total of 11 DBEs has had just over $2 million spent with them for the entirety of their time here on the project. Our project management and communications team also tracks our diversity business participation, led by GHP, women-owned business. The team consists of 2 women-owned businesses, 2 minority-owned businesses, and 1 small business. 100% diversity business since the inception of the project out here on site. Very proud of that. We have 5 DBEs in total, and just over $1.4 million spent to date for project management and communication services. Overall, what that means for the project is 31% participation in terms of dollars spent by the fairgrounds. This is inclusive of Fair Park and grandstands. All those projects together for a total of 46 DBEs in total and $9.84 million paid to date. So that's fantastic. The one note that I do have at the bottom is kitchen equipment. We have selected a kitchen equipment vendor. They're working right now with the Business Assistance Office to see if they would qualify as a small business prior to them starting work. So hopefully I can give an update that they are a small business, but we're working through that. Our efforts continue to make sure we're tracking all these dollars and identifying if there are any firms on the project who've yet to be classified as small businesses. We're continuing to contact them and see if there's opportunities there. Any questions about the DBE update?
Thank you, Ed.
All right, thank you. I'll turn it over to Michelle.
Morning.
Good morning.
Hope everybody had a good 4th holiday weekend. It was really nice. Can you all hear me in the back? Maybe. I'll try to speak really loudly. So it's been, 2 months, I think, since we've met. So we've done a lot in those 2 months. I'm sure if you've driven by the site, you can take a look. We have a couple pictures here, and thanks to Scott for bringing a projector. You should be able to see green grass and not yellow grass, so that's a good thing. But we just want to kind of walk you through some of the progress that's going on here. Thanks, Connell. Thank you, sir. Here's a good aerial shot of Fair Park. You hear us talk about Fair Park, and you've heard a lot of buzz about Fair Park. Have you all been there? Have you brought your pets down there? I know Laura has. It's very popular. Literally every time we drive by the site, there's someone at the park, and dogs are there. So it's very successful, I'd say. And you can see the grass is very green, so it looks really nice there. So the exterior progress, that's something that I'm sure you can see often if you're driving down Nolensville or anywhere near the site. Everything is, all the canopies are up. The loading dock canopy is the last one to go, and that was going up last week. So all the roofs are on, the sheds, everything looks really good. We're working now really mostly on interiors. Connell? Thank you. You can start to see some of the site work that's happening. The image on the right is actually the loading dock, which may not seem so exciting, but it's actually very exciting. It's nice and big. You'll have 4 semis that are there. It's good to have a nice official loading dock with a canopy, so I think that's really good. I know David Lewis has been pretty stoked about that. So. Inside the building, so again, images just don't do justice to this. These are very large facilities. Lots of open space, lots of clear span. You can kind of get a sense here. The image on the right, I believe, is standing on top of the mezzanine, which is storage space, which that in itself is pretty large space. But you get a good view of everything. The image on the left is the building of that ATO room. It's an air turnover unit. And as Laura was mentioning, issues with the HVAC systems, that's kind of the focus inside right now, the buildings, is getting those new facilities up to par. And it's going to be really a wonderful thing to have brand new facilities that are new HVAC systems. So that's what you see on the left. More interior, again, this may not seem exciting, but the restrooms are being built out. You can see some of the toilet partitions, the fixtures are going in, the countertops are going in, the floors have epoxy on them, so they're really starting to look finished. On the right, Laura, this one's for you. Again, it may not look very exciting, but this is the office hallway. You've got a really nice conferencing. I know that's one of the biggest items is having everyone together. So you can kind of start to see the offices, take shape, which I think will be really great. So. Outside, we've got the 2 sheds that are up. Those are in. We've got the show arena as well. Roof is up, and right now they're working on the electrical for those facilities. You can kind of start to see where the sidewalks are being poured and pavers are happening around the side, around the sheds. They're also very large spaces, and they're 2 long sheds that are very reminiscent of what's there today. So just quite a bit updated. And again, the site work. You get a sense of the retaining wall that's going along the western edge. And then that asphalt right there, that's actually for RV parking. So we've got 12 hookups with water, sewer, electricity, nice little RV area, which will be right there in that area. So that's what you see on the site happening. One more. Okay. Sort of a snapshot. Connell does this every month, and it's really nice, or every week, actually. It's really nice. It is every week. We really do look at it. And you can see where the canopy is going in down the loading dock. That's the last of the canopies. So really everything's roofed in, working on interiors inside the 3 expos and electrical inside the 2 sheds and arenas. So there's quite a bit going on there. We're welcome to have you guys come down if you want to take a look again. I mean, again, pictures really don't do much justice for how large these spaces are. It's pretty amazing. There's a nice aerial that's already very outdated. And that was just, I think, a month ago, early June. So we should get new aerials here pretty soon. But you can start to see how large the site is. The asphalt for the RV parking is in. You'll start to see the site work coming to shape around that throughout the month. Any questions? Yeah.
Good question. Thank you for that. Thank you for that update. It's just kind of nitpicky, but it was around the electricity. You kind of talked a little bit about the new facilities and how it's going to be more efficient. I'm just curious. Do we have like an estimate of how much we expect to save from electricity?
It's a good question.
We've already budgeted around $650,000 for next year. So I was just curious for Felicia and the board's understanding if there's an estimate of a different load that we expect from the LEDs and the HVACs. It'd be good to get that.
We can. That's right. We can get with our lead consultant and come up with those projections. So again, this is a LEED silver building, so all of the lighting, all of the HVAC, everything's very efficient. But that's a really good question, and I'm happy to look into that with the lead consultant. They should be able to give us a good production.
Rough estimate. Thank you.
Yeah. Any other questions?
Anyone?
Thank you.
All right, thank you very much.
I would like to remind everybody, we broke ground in November. So a little over 8 months ago, 9 months. We've come a long way. We're going to be scheduling, we're going to be meeting with various inspection agencies and scheduling final inspections starting in about 3 weeks. So the buildings themselves are getting ready to be finalized. Hopefully in August, we'll be able to get those things cleaned up. The site, because of some weather and some other issues, is probably going to be coming in September. but a lot of it's going to be making some good headway if we can keep this kind of weather. So I think we're excited about it getting there. Update on other projects. The demolition is going to happen after the state fair. So the state fair is still September, and once that's completed, then we'll be looking at demolition up on top of the hill. The infrastructure project is kicked off, and the design portions are up and running. There'll be some surveyors on site trying to get some detailed site information for the extension of Wedgwood and Benton Avenues and those areas, and trying to identify areas where we have trying to mesh all the various components together. That's moving along quite nicely. On the stadium itself, it is the design team has essentially completed schematics. It's with the construction managers. They're in the pricing phase. They're going through issues and trying to resolve questions that they may have at this stage. Working with the team and the team's operation group to try to get that moving. It's still on track to be open in the second quarter of 2022. So any questions or anything else I can answer with these?
What's the projection for how long the demolition will take?
It's about 3 months.
Okay.
We'll start trying to put some fencing up and some silt control. It's in procurement right now, so as soon as we get that back and get the team selected, then hopefully we can get all the permitting ready and everything ready to start literally right after the state fair.
Ron, can you talk about a little bit, I think the recent Metro budget had some Phase 2 Greenway and some other funds for infrastructure. Can you talk about how that fits into all this as well?
Yeah, if you can kind of look at the drawing that's up there, if you look at the area running along Craighead all the way up to Nolensville, that was Phase 2 of Fair Park. So that improvements to that area, even though we've done some, we went in and did some work to help balance the site in Phase 2 of Fair Park, but that's going to be to complete all of that area and connect that greenway that runs through Phase 1 of Fair Park all the way up to Nolensville Park.
Maybe Laura could better answer this, but what's the status of the grass there? When would people be playing on the fields there?
Sorry, they are already. We had a tour that we did last weekend, not this past weekend, but the weekend before, and there was, I think it's Extreme Frisbee was playing. It was great. So we had a couple teams out there. As far as programming, Parks had indicated early on this spring that they probably wouldn't do really intense scheduling with sports until after July, just to make sure, the grass is good. I mean, it's beautiful. We've used it for parking, and it handled it beautifully. We've also had some rain events since then, and again, it functioned as it was designed. So we've had really good experiences with it already. But I would anticipate more scheduled use after July.
Okay, thank you.
Quick question one more question on Phase 2. I think I'd understood that maybe there were some discussions or meetings coming up with some of the Greenway proponents. Has that happened yet? And I thought some folks had been looped in, like broader Greenway discussions.
I'm not aware of anything other than the tour. That's who we toured.
Okay.
Was Livable Cities and the Greenways Commission. So that is the group that came for a tour last Saturday, and we walked them around the entire site.
Okay.
We talked, more generally about connectivity within Nashville, and then of course our role in the improvements to Browns Creek and the connectivity from, Bransford to Nolensville.
Thanks.
And as that funding's put in place, we're also working with WeGo and other groups about mass transit and things like that, and how that's all going to play together. So as that funding comes in and we get the design team lined up for that, those are details will be worked out.
The plan for phase 2 already been done?
There is a plan that was done. It was done as part of phase 1. We're gonna modify that some, not a lot. You know, part of it's to clean up Browns Creek in that area. That's all going to stay the same. How the Greenway functions and relates to WeGo and some of their requests is things that we'll be trying to clarify.
If that could be presented to the board when it's in planning, good.
Yes, sir. It will definitely do that. And what we're looking for is the funding. Then we'll get into the details about how that's going to get a design team together and get that laid out.
Do we know how long the Greenway is, like in miles or kilometers?
I think it's approximately 0.8 miles right now, and when everything is said and done, it should be 1.3 miles.
Any other questions? Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, can we move on to update on Speedway Motorsports, Inc., please?
Temporarily blinded there. Yeah, I have a short update. I believe that we had already met with Speedway Motorsports prior to our May meeting, and okay, it's two whole months ago. We've met with them twice this spring. Most recently, we sat down and kind of did, I like to describe it as kind of a reset with design, just to kind of start from scratch and take into consideration our existing site plans and our footprints, and making sure that, we can accommodate the fair park as we do, and just make sure that all of the entities that are on the campus as approved, like all of those little pieces of the puzzle are kept intact, and everything is taken into consideration as a whole campus. So it was a great meeting. We made a lot of headway and progress, and they took our conversation back, and we are looking to meet again with them in the next couple weeks to sit down and look at the results of those conversations and see a little bit more detail on how those progress. And as you know, just a reminder, the board appointed Commissioner Bergeron to represent the board. Certainly we'll be keeping him in the loop and attending those meetings as we move forward as well.
Yeah, I think that the meeting in late May was a good chance to level set, reset a little bit, because obviously that sort of rendering that was floating out there wasn't really done in relation to the actual site plan and what else. So we'll see now what a real idea looks like. We're a long ways away, and there's probably a lot of discussions. They haven't gone through the community engagement process yet. They haven't even started that. So we'll see what is even possible and go from there once we know what they come up with next. So we'll see how that looks. But they were receptive thus far to sort of parameters and the need to be working with other stakeholders on the site and the surrounding community, and what they actually do come forward with, as opposed to that sort of picture that was floating out there before.
Okay, thank you for that. Let me see here.
Is City Council aware that you guys have had that conversation? If I'm correct, there's some legislation on the table right now regarding that possible deal. Are they aware that?
We've been keeping council members and committee chairs apprised of communications and our progress with SMI, yes.
Okay. I think that legislation that was pending more addressed something totally different, with sort of that more addresses the current site plan than the rezoning that's already been approved. So I don't know that that necessarily bears upon these discussions per se. I think it's kind of a little bit of a separate thing. I think if we're talking about the same bill. But yeah, there's no legislation pending to do any project right now to
Right.
for the racetrack.
Right, I thought that there was some bill going on about the feet between the buildings or something.
Yeah, there is legislation pending there's legislation. The question was, is there legislation pending right now relating to the distance of the mixed use to the track? And you're right, there's a setback ordinance that is making its way through council. My understanding is that it was deferred until the August public hearing for discussion.
And it received
So
a negative. It received a negative sort of
It
vetting
did.
at the Planning Commission.
It went through Planning Commission and was disapproved by the Planning Commission.
Okay. All right, so next on the agenda is State Fair. No? Yeah, I think so. It should move up.
Oh, sorry,
Yeah.
I don't
Yeah.
have,
That's the revised one that Christie
sorry.
sent.
It was posted, so. I get it.
So who wants to lead this conversation?
I can give a general update. So in May, we did let the board know that we did come to agreement on final terms for a contract. And so what we have been doing since May is just incorporating those terms into a final agreement, which you have in front of you. There's been and we talked a little bit verbally in May about the changes as they were presented in April to you, and they are mainly two things. One was the compensation term. Originally, we had proposed a split payment of upfront, which had been done in prior contracts, and then the remainder paid after. We did agree to an overall rent reduction to help TSFA make their budget goals. So we will be receiving an $85,000 flat payment after fair is concluded. So that was a little bit of an adjustment that came just before our May meeting. It was, instead of the split of $65,000 coming first and the remaining coming after the fair, we agreed to 85 after the fair. So it's the same amount. It was just a shift in the payment schedule. The other item that in your original term sheet that was presented as an outstanding item that needed resolution was a scheduling conflict. Originally there was a motorsport race scheduled for September 7th. That fell on the traditional first weekend of State Fair, and State Fair traditionally has used that weekend and used the track that weekend to host a monster truck event, which has been very beneficial to their revenue and for their attendance as well. So that was a really critical event, and needless to say, they could not coexist on the same day. So since we met, we've all met with the Formosas and State Fair and the fairgrounds, and we have done some cooperative and collaborative scheduling so that State Fair will be able to have their monster truck event on the first weekend of State Fair. The race that was originally scheduled for September 7th will be rescheduled to August 31st, a week ahead. And then we made an adjustment to one of the Speedway events, which was a concert that was scheduled. We are actually going to be hosting that at our Fair Park site so that the track can be freed up for these. So it was kind of a domino, but it was a really good and thoughtful collaboration between our three parties, and it's win-win all the way around. So we did resolve that, and hopefully Scott got, Mr. Jones, you got an opportunity to confirm with your monster trucks that they will be here first weekend of State Fair.
Okay, so we have a term sheet. It's been
Yes, and in your
circulated.
packet is the draft contract. I will note that there are 2 exhibits pending right now. One is the insurance exhibit from State Fair, which we will get updated and included. The other one, Exhibit C, is a map of the footprint, and we are going to be working with Scott in the next couple days to get that finalized. For the most part, they're going to have the same footprint as they did previous fairs, but we're going to also include some parking down at the new Expo Center so that they can put some of their RVs, and I believe some of their carnival workers are going to be parking down toward the shed. So we wanted to include that footprint as well, and we just need to make sure that we're both on the same page of how many spaces that we need to include in that map. So we'll get that finalized in the next few days.
To add to that, is my mic on?
Yes, but you just have to put it
Pull it a
really
little closer.
close.
Okay.
Yeah.
To add to that, so your approval today of the draft contract would include a reference to B and C needing to be incorporated, and giving the executive director and the director of insurance for Metro final authority as to Exhibit C, which is the insurance, and Exhibit B, which is the insurance, and Exhibit C, which is the actual map. That way, the board won't have to come back to the board for approval of those 2 exhibits. If I may just touch on a couple of other things. In your draft, we're going to be taking out the reference to provision number 45 and making that provision 42 under the Section 10 cancellation section. We're planning to delete the last sentence of Section 11. I actually just stepped out and spoke with the attorney for TSFA concerning this contract, because she and I had been in communication with regard to some of the terms, and so I wanted to make sure that they were comfortable with us moving forward, given some of the things that we were discussing. Number 11 was one of them, so that last sentence is going to be removed. And then in Section 12, under default by licensee, she and I had been in discussion concerning provisions C and D, and they are included in your draft. They had raised some questions about that, but are at this point not raising an objection to us moving forward with those 2 incorporated. And the reason we needed to keep those in there, so the board knows, is so that we have some remedy for breach or some remedy to seek redress at the courts in the event that that would be necessary. Of course, we all hope that that would never be necessary, but we have to keep those provisions in there. It's the legal department's recommendation to keep those provisions in there. And those are the only substantive changes that I am aware of to the draft that you have before you. So again, as you contemplate approval today, we would ask that that your motion contemplate that legal will work with the executive director on any necessary changes that are non-substantive, but also incorporating these changes that I've described to you today.
Susan, and I apologize because I was looking at another section and I may not have heard right on the insurance provision in 8A, and I'm looking at a copy of the marked up between the 2 sides. So it was who changed those amounts? Did we change those amounts to what they are in this, or?
But they
the
are
limits,
and I don't have the marked up version in front of me, but
and I was a little
can grab
unclear
it
on what they were
real quick.
changed from and changed to, and that.
I do have some markups. That was actually, if I recall, changed by the TSFA attorney to match their current coverage. Their coverage was more than what was originally
Okay.
in the event contract.
Okay, good. Yeah, that's what it seemed like, and I just wanted to make
Okay.
sure. Cool.
Right, I have the marked up version now too as well. And on the insurance piece, that was one of the things that, again, we were seeking approval of. There, initially, I think the automobile insurance endorsement for covering Metro as an additional insurer was inadvertently left off of the items that they've already sent to us, so we're working with them to try to make sure that they're aware of that so that it can be included in this contract as well, in this, in the COI.
Laura, not directly a contract question, but per se, but related to it. The discussions about that we've had, and I see reflected in the contract about division of parking. What is the status of our discussions with Metro Schools about using the Metro School Board parking on those high-traffic weekends for possible extra parking?
They have given us their verbal approval to utilize those lots, and so we'll be working with our parking staff and with State Fair staff to establish a shuttle schedule to help transport people from that area. They have about 600 spots that we'll be using to help, like you said, on those Saturdays and Sundays where State Fair has the larger daily attendance.
So we're looking for a motion to get this moved to completion for this contract.
Chairman, I can make that motion. I want to thank Laura and Susan for all their hard work on this, and of course the folks with the fair for staying here another year because we're always happy to have them. But I move to approve the contract as presented in substance, while also authorizing giving the Director of Insurance final authority on approval of the reference, the Exhibit B that was discussed, and also giving the Executive Director final authority on Exhibit C to finalize that exhibit, and finally giving the Executive Director and our legal representative authority to make final revisions and edits for any non-substantive changes to the contract.
Second.
All right, so we have a motion and a second. Is there further discussion or questions on getting this accomplished today? If not, are we ready for a vote? All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, that motion carries. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, we have some new business, a request by Formosa Productions regarding added motorsports events. Good morning.
Good morning, Board. First of all, before I present this to you folks, I want to, and I've got to apologize for not bringing in my printed literature to hand out to each of you. I totally did not know that the board meeting was today. I was thinking it was tomorrow. And if Laura hadn't sent me a reminder this morning, she actually saved my life with this. So my mistake on that, and I will make sure that each and every one of you folks get a emailed copy of the rules and all the statistics of this if we're able to get it approved. The one thing I want to, it's probably no big secret to everyone, but I want everybody to be aware that Mother Nature has really been down on the sport of stock car racing, not just here in Nashville, but all around the country. There have been multiple major events rained out. We've only had 2 motorsports events in the past 8 months that we were able to get in at the Speedway, and they're both makeup events, starting in October of 2018 up to this past week, the weekend before last, which was also a makeup race. On Mother's Day, I did have to cancel the event because of massive rain, lightning, and bad weather, and we went to Sunday as a makeup day. which was Mother's Day. That was a bad mistake on my part. We lost a lot of attendance, and whenever you have a makeup race, whenever you have a rain out, people have set their schedules for the entire summer, and a lot of them, unfortunately, can't come back to the event. So we had very low attendance for both of our events. We've had great car count, as always, but we've had low attendance because they've been makeup events. This coming weekend, it looks like we've been blessed with some really good weather, and hopefully we're going to get a good event in and get back on course. So I just wanted to remind everybody of that. I've not seen anything like this happen, and I've been coming out here since I was 5 years old, and I've never seen this many events in a row rained out, but it can happen. What I am proposing to you folks is, and I have a few questions that you guys have. I had a list of a few questions to answer, but this race will be called the 2019 Music City Grocery Getter, and they're very, very unusual events. They're not actually racing events. They're endurance events. And I'll just read you off. They have a very short list of rules. All cars should come to the facility race ready. All glass headlights, taillights should be removed, along other accessible parts such as jacks, spare tires, and old parts, trash, etc. All cars' interior must remain. So in other words, this is a car like you guys normally drive to work every day, and just it's open to various makes and models. It can only be 22 foot in from the front bumper to the back bumper, but it has to have all its original interior. It has to be stock, just like you would drive to work every morning. It has to have a seatbelt, a working AM/FM radio, because that's how we're going to talk to the drivers through their radio, just like a drive-in movie. I have been in touch with our insurance personnel, Jeff Ladd. He has insured these events across the country. They're very much familiar with them. It is a one-day event. There will be no qualifying and no practice. They'll be registered. Their starting position is determined on how they register. All cars and vans must be eligible to 22 foot in length and smaller. You do have an option of running a fuel cell, which is a collapsible gas tank. It's highly recommended, but you don't have to have it. All glass must be removed, taillights, headlights, no roll cages, no modifications whatsoever. Like I said, you do have to have an AM/FM radio working in a vehicle. Fueling, this will be a 10 to 12 hour endurance race. Once again, it's not a race, it's just an endurance test. There'll be no rough driving, no bumping. Anyone that's caught swerving or bumping or blocking or anything will be immediately parked and disqualified from the event. You will have to have a minimum of 3 drivers per car, where they will come in and change drivers because it's so long. During the competition, vehicles will remain on the speedway if they have a flat tire. Now, what we're going to come up with is kind of a different deal than what the other people are doing. We'll have 5 tow trucks and push trucks, and if someone breaks down or has a flat or something, we have a little magnetic red fluorescent flag that's on a magnet stand. They stick it on the roof of their car, and the red flag comes out. Everyone slows down to 5 miles an hour. The tow truck goes out there and removes the vehicle from competition on the speedway. There'll be 5 jam vehicles that will remove disabled vehicles, and so forth and so on. No passengers of any sort, any sort are permitted. Any violations will result in immediate disqualification. Shall a vehicle be in the work area, no crew members are permitted under the vehicle without proper use of a jack stands, or simple floor jack is not significant. 8, there'll be a restricted speed limit of 5 miles an hour will be enforced in the pits and the service area. Now, these cars will have to go in and refuel. There will be a designated area in the lower pits where they'll have to go in and refuel. We'll have firefighters there with all the proper fire extinguishers and everything. All teams must have a 5-pound fire extinguisher in their pits and in their car at all times. Number 10, rough driving and aggressive driving strictly prohibited. Any vehicle or competitor found blocking and intentionally crashing related to other competitors shall be penalized or disqualified for the remainder of the speedway. That will be determined by track officials. If you wouldn't make contact driving down the highway, don't do it here either. Each vehicle must have a minimum of 4 drivers registered to the vehicle. Each registered driver must turn at least 1 lap in the vehicle. They are resisted to compete. Failure to do this will be an immediate result in disqualification. Have fun, and let's remember, this is not a race. This is an endurance test. Be creative. So this event is open to the public, and it will pay somewhere in the neighborhood of $10,000 to $20,000 to win. It'll be a fee for registration, and that will cover the drivers and 5 crew members. So it's working really good at different tracks. With all the upgrades and everything that we have done to our quarter-mile track, we feel really good about that. And the track is a whole lot more safer than it was in the beginning. Since the World Outlaw people came in and added a second guardrail and the extension fences and everything. So we want to put this on. Of course, we'll be working with Scott Wallace, the neighborhood, and Laura as far as scheduling. We're looking at doing this sometime this fall. We feel like it'll be really good for the Speedway and pull a lot of attendance and certainly a lot of cars in. We'll also have fire suits and helmets for rent at the Speedway if they want to do that. But this will be monitored. Each car will have a transponder on it. So every time they come around and make a lap, it will be computerized scored with our transponding system. So at the end of 10 hours or 12 hours, this race will start at 9 o'clock in the morning and go to 9 o'clock at night, or 10 o'clock in the morning, 10 o'clock at night. If we should fall short on cars in the field, say like if we get 4 or 5 hours into the race and there are like 30 or 40 cars that have fell out, we'll probably shorten the race down to 6, maybe 8 hours. But it'll be scheduled for a 12-hour endurance race.
Okay, thank you.
Any questions?
How many cars do you think?
How many
total?
cars?
Yeah.
I think we probably cut it off at 60, maybe 70 cars. We'll line them up 3 abreast at the start, and once again, we'll get their starting position according to how they register. If you're the first guy to register, you'll start in the first starting position, and so forth and so on.
What I was trying to determine, because I was looking at some videos of these races online, and with that many cars, how fast are they usually going around the track with that kind of crowd?
You know what? With that many cars on the track and that small of a track with no banking, I'd say top speed would be 45 to 50 miles an hour at the most. Once again, this event is not about speed, it's about endurance. The harder you run your car, the more chance you have of it breaking down or having a flat tire or running out of gas. So I think the person that gets out there and keeps it smart, keeps it simple, will walk away with the prize money. This will give anyone that has a dream of getting out here on the track, they don't have to go buy a race car or buy a lot of fancy racing equipment. They can come out here and be smart. And I look for somebody in a Volkswagen or something to win it, actually.
Will the cars still have their mufflers on?
Absolutely. They will be 100% street legal other than headlights and taillights. They have to be. That's part of the deal. All the interior must be intact. You must have a cross shoulder strap, just like your regular seat belts in your car, and you have to have a working AM/FM radio where we will be talking to each individual racer or endurance personnel through the radio system, just like a drive-in movie. No more than you would have on the interstate. These are not race cars. These are everyday driven cars, minus the headlights and taillights. So I don't think noise is going to be an issue to this whatsoever. Matter of fact, I know it won't be. Somebody comes in and they remove their mufflers or something, then they'll have to put mufflers on before they can compete. They're not even allowed to remove the catalytic converters.
It's kind of a question for you, Mr. Formosa, but I guess also kind of for legal, what I'm thinking about is the waiver necessary for members of the public who aren't professional drivers. Would definitely be worried about making sure we have proper waivers protection.
Excellent question, Jason. We do have the liability waivers that we get from our insurance company on pads, and we will have everyone sign that. And we'll also be getting some additional waivers from Jeff Ladd at Sports Specialties for everyone to sign in. You also will have to have a valid driver's license to compete.
That'll help.
Just to clarify, Laura told me, but to win, you get the most laps, right?
Beg your pardon?
To win the competition, it's whoever gets the most laps around, right?
Whoever makes the most laps. And each time your car makes a lap, it will have a computer box on it. It will be scored through our computer system. So the person with the most laps at the end will be the winner. That is correct. There's no way not to score the cars. $500. Would you like to register? Come on.
I'm in, for sure.
All right, question for legal. Do we need, I guess we could push this to the next meeting, right?
Right.
And,
I would suggest that you push it to the next meeting. Legal would need to review the document that you're reading from, as well as look into the liability issues, as Mr. Bergeron has pointed out, as well as draft an official amendment to the existing contract. And so all of those things would need to occur before the board would be in a position to actually move approval of it. And so that would be my recommendation to you. It sounds like that won't put Mr. Formosa in a bind, because the idea is to have this in the fall. So the quicker that I can get all the information necessary to draft the amendment, I'll be happy to work on that for the board.
You'll have it within the next. You'll have it within the next 48 hours. I promise you.
Fantastic. Thank you.
is there any other general feedback from the board or any, while they work on this? And I guess you've already been talking to our executive director as well. So.
Absolutely.
Okay. Anybody else on this item? All right. Thank you, Tony.
Thank you very much.
Question for Tony while he's up here. I came to the fair board offices earlier this morning and just noticed there was a bunch of trash around the track. I don't know if there was an event this weekend or not, but if you get your staff to look into that, appreciate it.
I'm sorry.
Bunch of trash around the track.
Sir, I have a crew of 7 people that we arrived at 8:45. I was late picking them up. My fault again. I think if you'll go down there and take a look at it when you leave here, you'll see a totally different. We worked till about 2:30 Sunday morning, and all of my cleanup guys were just totally exhausted from the heat, and I was myself. So I actually phoned Scott Wallace yesterday morning and asked him if he would relate to Laura and had a problem on me waiting to Monday morning to start to clean up, because our guys were just completely exhausted from the heat on Saturday.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Anything else? I guess next on, we have election.
So we had each year, the board considers the next year's slate of officers. So we did that in May or April. Christy, you can probably correct me, but we had nominations for chair and vice chair, and so that slate of officers is up for formal election by the board today. There were no changes.
So I guess we need a motion on that previous slate that was put forth.
Reminder that the Ned is chair and Commissioner McNally is vice chair.
Yes.
Okay. Although dismayed by the lack of TV commercials and door knocks and mail pieces I've received, I will make a motion to nominate Chairman Ned Horton and Commissioner Aaron McNally for vice chair.
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Okay, if none, all in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, that motion carries. We have a slate of officers for a year. All right, any other comments, issues?
I just wanted to end just by recognizing and honoring Officer John Anderson, who was the Metro officer killed on Thursday. So again, our thoughts and prayers go to his family as a Metro colleague. Certainly, we are sensitive to his loss.
Thank you, Laura. And I'll just, Mr. Jones, anything from your? All right.
Pray for great weather. I know.
All right. All right, thank you, Scott. Do we have a motion?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. The meeting is adjourned. Thanks for everything, everybody.
This has been a service of the Metro Nashville Network. If you would like to see this presentation again, or for more information about this and other programs, visit nashville.gov.